It is super easy for women to have sex.
And you know
Super.
that because you're a woman?
No, I know that because I'm a man and I've heard women say this, and I know that it's definitely easier for women to have sex than it is for men.
Okay, so you think that society applauds men because it's harder for men versus women.
Absolutely.
Welcome to This Beautiful Struggle.
I'm excited about it.
We finally have gotten to a point where we're just ready to share unfiltered our lives. Infertility is tough. Adoption is tough. But then even talking about like me losing my dad, you losing your mom within a couple of years of each other, our kids losing grandparents, your career and my career, and then making the ultimate decision to move to Nevada and what that looks like, moving away from all of your friends and family and all of those things.
Hopefully people can resonate with our story and just letting people know that they're not alone.
It's not the norm, and infertility is something that people don't ever want to talk about. Our family is such a hot mess, Express. I mean, this is just what it is, right? Like, yes. We don't have to front anymore.
It's been a long time coming. Welcome back to This Beautiful Struggle. I'm Casey.
And I'm Erin. And today we are going to set the record straight. We have gotten a lot of questions. I think people just want to know. We are not those people who love to talk politics. And so, but with that being said, there are a lot of conversations that easily can turn political or just have, I guess, different agendas behind them. And so we've gotten a lot of questions where people have asked us, like, so we know you're a law enforcement family, so we assume that you're right-leaning, but you are Black, let's just keep it real, and you're from California, so then we also assume that you're liberal. Welcome to This Beautiful Struggle.
I'm excited about it.
We finally have gotten to a point where we're just ready to share unfiltered our lives. Infertility is tough. Adoption is tough. But then even talking about like me losing my dad, you losing your mom within a couple of years of each other, our kids losing grandparents, your career and my career, and then making the ultimate decision to move to Nevada and what that looks like, moving away from all of your friends and family and all of those things.
Hopefully people can resonate with our story and just letting people know that they're not alone.
It's not the norm, and infertility is something that people don't ever want to talk about. Our family is such a hot mess, Express. I mean, this is just what it is, right? Like, yes. So we don't have to front anymore.
It's been a long time coming. So I would say our family, and specifically you and I, because that's truly what we're talking about, I don't think we're far right or far left.
Well, we're definitely not far anything.
Exactly.
We are right smack in the middle. People always ask us this: are you Republicans or you're Democrat? We are registered independents.
True. So there are a lot of things that we agree with, and there are a lot of things that we disagree with. And I feel like we can find things on both ends of the spectrum that we agree with, and we can find things on both ends of the spectrum that we disagree with. So I think we're very level-headed when it comes to things like that. We try to look at things open-minded, and we try to have a perspective where we try to put ourselves in the place of everyone, and we can kind of figure out how someone can come to that type of determination or how they got to that, how their thought process was. But we're not ride or die anything.
We are not. And honestly, like we're always, if you've listened to previous episodes, even as we talk about law enforcement and all of those things, like, you know, we always land right in the middle. You know what I mean? When there's this big, you know, law enforcement against the Black community and whatever, we understand both sides of that, right? Like we understand it from the Black community side. We understand it from the law enforcement side. So we always find ourselves somewhere in the middle. Politics isn't something that I love to talk about, not in this day and age, because we have just watched so many, I mean, even in relationships that we've had, you know, we've had relationships, you know, be broken because of difference of opinions. And so
just people, they don't like who you voted for, so they will just completely not talk to you.
And like cut you off, and like we're just, you know what I mean? Life is so short, you know, and I think that it is important. But I think that there are certain conversations that are appropriate to have in certain settings. And there's other times when, you know, you can have certain conversations. They're more appropriate than the other. And so, yeah, for podcast purposes, we're keeping it light and fun. But with that being said, a lot of you guys have asked us, do we lean more right? Do we lean more left? And ultimately, it really just depends on the topic. I know for me specifically, and I'll leave it at this, I think Casey is the same. When it comes to a lot of things that kind of like surround crime and certain laws, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Sometimes I do lean more conservative when it comes to social justice issues, human rights, and stuff like that. I do lean more left, but it really ultimately depends on what the topic is. And I'm someone who leads more with like common sense. Sometimes we lean left, sometimes we lean right, sometimes we're right in the middle, and that's just it. That's just who we are, So you'll never really find us identifying other than we're independent.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. And also, I mean, we're a law enforcement family, but we're also an African American family. So, like she said, we see things from both ends of the spectrum, and we can relate and we can identify with. I mean, I can almost identify with anyone. I can see something in them or see something in their beliefs and agree with it. But like, oh, I understand why they see things that way. So, yeah, I don't think we're super devoted to anything.
And I know that can also be controversial. I've had people tell me pick a side. No, I'm not going to pick a side.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Like, I've heard people, well, if you don't stand for something, then you'll fall for anything. I'm like, that's the most ridiculous thing.
Or
I've
that
ever
if
heard.
we're just not vocal, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, which we won't really get into, but like, if because you're not talking about it and vocalizing it, then you must agree with it. That couldn't be further from the truth. I think at the end of the day, what I've learned through just social media is one, I need to protect my peace. And I have been that person who has gone full-fledged. Casey will be like, don't comment on it. Don't comment on it. And I'm like angry typing, commenting. And then I'm like, why did I comment? Because now it's consumed my whole day. And it's not like I'm changing anyone's mind, right? And so, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like you have your beliefs, we have ours, and I respect yours, and I would expect that you would respect mine. And if you can't do that, then that's fine. There's the door. You don't have to be a part of my life. Like, you don't have to, if you want to be a part of my life, great. But if you don't, I'm not begging anyone to stay, a part of my life because they want to talk politics and I don't want to talk politics. I know the people who I can talk politics with, and I know the people who I cannot talk politics with, and I just respect all of that,
Yeah. And let me just say, even if I don't agree with someone's viewpoints or even my friends or family, that does not mean that I don't like you or I'm against you or we can't be friends anymore because we disagree on a specific topic. I think as adults, we got to move past that, like Aaron was saying, this whole pick a side stuff. Well, there's nothing wrong with agreeing to disagree. Hey, you see things this way, I see things a different way. Doesn't mean that now, oh, I can't be around you because we don't think exactly alike. Well, I'm my own human, you're your own human. I don't need to see things the same way you see things. And just because we see things differently doesn't mean that now I can't be your friend anymore. But we just have a disagreement on this specific topic. But there's other things in life that are totally outside of that, and which has probably led us to the reason why we were friends, because we do have a lot of things in common. Because if we didn't have those things in common, we probably wouldn't be friends in the first place. But I'm not going to let one disagreement end a friendship. That's just not the type of person that I am. Because, hey, she likes pineapple on pizza. I don't like pineapple on pizza. I'm not going to be like, oh man, this is not working for me because she likes pineapple. Like, it's silly. It's silly. And I'm just not that type of person.
But there it is. We set the record straight. Just know that there are also times that me and him don't agree politically and we will go at it. You know what I mean? But then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, all right, on to the next. So there you go. Hopefully that answers all of your questions. But if you still have some feedback and you want to send it to us, please feel free to do so. I want to jump into this topic because we talk about this so much, but I want to continue the conversation. I feel like this is the perfect platform for that. So we talk so much about gender roles, double standards, like all of those things. And so I would just be interested for, please, like this is an episode that we definitely want your feedback. If you don't feel comfortable dropping a comment, then hit us up on, send us an email, hit us up.
DM us.
Yeah, get up in our DMs and let us know. But like, I would love, because me and Casey spend so much time talking about double standards. We always get, right now, we're like in this, not say like this debate, but like we talked about it earlier today. We talked about it last week. We're constant. So it's this ongoing conversation of, can men and women do the same things? And I think where it comes from is, we definitely are living in, during a time now where it's like women can do everything that a man can do. And I'm someone who always will say that, right? But the reality is that's not the case in every single thing. But yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Let's get into it.
So we're always, I don't know, you start this.
Well,
because you're super opinionated here, so let's hear it. Let me hear your opinions.
Well, my opinion is, can men and women do the same things? Yes. Can men and women do the same things at the same level? No.
I'm in agreement with you so far. Example, though.
Men and women can both play basketball, but you put LeBron or Steph Curry in the WNBA, and they would kill those women.
Yes, I agree.
So, yeah, we can both play basketball. Can we do it at the same level? Absolutely not. And to even think that you could swap each other, either put a woman in the NBA or put a man in the WNBA, and there wouldn't be this huge gap, it's just ridiculous to me. That's just somebody living in fantasy land.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a bigger conversation. I definitely think society and history have defined our roles, right? And so what it goes back to is ultimately
Biology.
Then you have your biological makeup and stuff like that as well. But I think, too, it's like you go back to, women were always the homemakers. Men were always, they always worked outside the home, right? They were the provider, when we think of the history, of our roles in society.
Yeah, well, but I think there's a reason for that, because I think women, from the beginning of time, obviously women carry the children, they birth the children. They are the nurturers of our kids. They breastfeed. They tend to care for the children. They have that. A mother's bond with a child is so strong. And not to say that a father can't have a strong bond with his child, but the mother is that first nurturer. I mean, you literally carried another human in your body for 9 months. So to think that the father could have that same level as you, I don't think that's realistic. Not taking anything away from dads, because dad, you can have a great, awesome relationship with your kid and be very nurturing as well.
But what does that have to do with them being the homemaker? Yes, okay, a woman carries a kid and all that in the relationship, but what does that have to do with?
Historically, and this is kind of ties into economics. Historically, back in the day, where I don't know how far you want to go back. We can go back 50s, 60s. Most families were, one, there were more married relationships, more married couples. Two, you could survive off of one income. So that meant, because the women were the nurturer and the carer for the kids, the man generally was the one who worked outside the home. And that's why the woman stayed home.
Okay.
Now it's damn near impossible, unless you're like extremely rich, for there just to be single income. So I think that's where that originated from.
Okay. So what you're saying is the reason why the woman was the homemaker was because they birthed the babies and breastfed the babies, and they're the nurturers, and men had to work. I'm just making sure I'm following.
Yes.
Okay. And now you're saying, that's changed because you can't live off of a single income family?
Well, it's changed because one, it's just hard to for any family to survive off a single income, but also I think the dynamics in society have evolved, and women are more able to work outside of the home. I think probably in the 50s, and I don't know, obviously I wasn't born then, so I'm just using common sense knowledge, but women probably working outside of the home in the 50s, 60s was probably discouraged for them. Even if they wanted to, they were probably discouraged from doing that because this society placed that role on them that you need to be at home with the kids and then the man goes out and works. But society has evolved where that's not the case anymore. Women can go outside and work, and they're just as capable as men of going outside and work and providing for their families, just like men can.
Well, I think also we have to take into consideration that women didn't have the same rights as men.
True.
So I think it wasn't just that women didn't want to go out or whatever. It's just we didn't have the same rights, and we had to fight to have equal rights. Okay, I just wanted to clean that up.
But I never said that because I thought women.
I know, but it came across like, oh, well, women didn't want to do that. Women, X, Y, Z.
I never said that. I said women were discouraged from doing that. But the whole, what rights are you talking about that specifically?
Well, I'm just saying, I think at the end of the day, it's like, we've never, in general, like, it's always been that the man has been superior, right, to the woman. So there's only, society has told us, history has dictated, you know what I mean, that like we are not equal, and that you have your roles and that we have our roles, and so
go ahead.
And so I think that, I think before, like, yes, we used to be homemakers. And even to this day, you see more stay-at-home moms, than you see stay-at-home dads. I also even would go further to say, like, when we talk about gender roles now, we talk about jobs and all of these things that men and women can do the same things. But, I've known some stay-at-home dads who are like, I have no idea how you were able to do this. You know what I mean? Because this is just too much. I think it also ties into, like the emotional, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like, women are more emotional beings where men are not known to be emotional, right? So as far as you being able to relate to your child or to raise your child and, nurture your child, like emotions play a big part in that as well, Yeah. But nowadays I feel like, okay, so let's get now well into 2025. I think that you have so many different, it's so controversial right now, but like you have, people who think that women should be able to be in the same line of work. And we talk about this a lot as men, right? Like I think about in construction, you do now see, and I'm actually very proud, to say that you see women in construction, whereas that's not something that you saw before at all, right? Women in aviation, right? Like you see more women there's definitely more men in aviation than women in aviation. Corporate America, law enforcement, first responders, but it's the same. You see more women as nurses than men, right? Like you see more men as police officers than women. But I do think that those are two jobs that a man can be a nurse, a woman can be a nurse.
Absolutely.
A woman could be a police officer, a man could be a police officer. I think within law enforcement, though, there are, and maybe law enforcement isn't the best, but like I definitely think that there are more kind of like jobs within certain industries where, you could work in law enforcement, but if you want to do X, Y, Z, like it's more common, I guess, to see a man doing it than a woman.
Yeah. I walk into a daycare and it's run by a bunch of men. I'm like, not to say that men can't run a daycare.
Oh, I know a couple of men that have daycares.
But it's not what she said. It's not common. So if you walk into a daycare and there's a bunch of men in there, not saying they can't do it, but
I feel like
I've never
we
seen
should
that.
change that, though.
As opposed to you walk into a daycare and it's a bunch of women in there, you're like, oh yeah, there's no problem.
But see, I feel like that's different, and that honestly could be changed because I feel like just like there's a bunch of single moms out there, there's also a bunch of single dads. So do I think a man is capable of owning and running a daycare? Yes. Is it the norm? No. But you know what I mean?
The stigma attached to it.
There is a
There's
stigma
a lot of
attached
women
to
like,
it.
I'm not leaving my baby with no man.
That's ignorance.
No, I agree.
That's ignorance, you
I
know.
agree.
But at the end of the day, I do feel like that is a job that a man can do too. Like, I trust you with the kids. Like, you could run a daycare and, you know, have a daycare. I think I just get caught up when people are like, oh, a woman's job is in the home, or a woman's job is to be the support. A woman's job is, you know, I get really I start to see red a little bit when when a woman's job. Now, with that being said, like, I understand that we have, you know, different roles and jobs and stuff like that are better suited for a woman, you know, and the same thing for men. But I do get pissed when I hear like, oh, that's not a job for a woman. Like, what? You know what I mean? And I think that it's a bigger conversation, also leads, you know, a lot of that is there's a lot of double standards, you know what I mean, out there that are society driven, or, you know, I mean, we can go on and for days about this, but I do think that there are a lot of jobs that both men and women can do. I think that there are other jobs and industries where it is more common. You know, if I am in Vegas, for example, let's use this. In Vegas, for example, a lot of the older homes, the air conditioning units are on top of the home. Well, how does it get on top of the home? I'm assuming you have to use some sort of either equipment, or you yourself have to carry the unit, which
damn near impossible
to get to the top of the house. I wouldn't expect to see a woman up there, not to say she can't do it, but I wouldn't, you know what I would think in this industry out here in Las Vegas, you know what I mean? You're going to see more men doing the heavy lifting, you know
Manual
what I
labor
mean?
jobs.
Because at the end of the day, my body is not built in that way. Men are stronger than women. That, you know, that's the way that we were created. You know, I could work out and do X, Y, Z, and you're still going to beat me in arm wrestle. You know what I mean? Because you are a man and you were made differently than the way that I was, you know, made differently. So, but with that being said, I also think that there are just a lot of double standards that I don't know, that we just need to like debunk. Like, you know,
Let's get into it. Start naming them off. I
Well,
want to hear.
I don't know. I mean, one of the biggest ones that I always hear is, you know, if a woman has had a lot of sexual partners, she's a hoe. But if a man has had a lot of sexual partners, it's like, yeah. Why?
Because it's easy for women to obtain sex. It's hard for men to obtain sex.
I disagree.
When something is hard, you're more applauded for accomplishing it as opposed to you doing something easy.
What? Really?
That is 100% why. It is. As a man, do you know how difficult it is for a man to obtain sex? A woman can pick up her phone, call any dude in her phone,
No.
and yes,
It's not that easy,
I don't
though.
think you're being reasonable right now, because it is super easy for women to have sex. Super.
And you know that because you're a woman?
No, I know that because I'm a man, and I've heard women say this, and I know that it's definitely easier for women to have sex than it is for men.
Okay, so you think that society applauds men because it's harder for men versus women.
Absolutely.
So if it was easier for men to have sex, I mean, this day and age, you can just pay,
Yeah.
right? So you're saying it's hard, but I mean, as we know, we live in Vegas, it's easy. You pick up the phone, you go on a
But that's
website.
not what we're talking about, though.
That is what I'm just talking about in general.
Well, I'm not talking about in general. You're talking about paying for sex. I'm
But
not
you're
talking
saying
about
it's
paying.
hard to get. And I'm saying in this day and age, it's not hard to get.
It's hard to get when you're not paying for it. I'm just talking about, hey, you meet a girl at a bar. I can go up to 15 girls at a bar and be like, oh, do you want to have sex? And they probably all 15 would be like disgusted and be like, ew, no, I don't even know you. Let an attractive woman go up to 15 dudes in a bar and be like, hey, do you want to have sex? Those dudes are going to be like, yes.
Okay, but see, then that's okay. But that's
just,
still,
I know that's on the dude who's saying yes, but I'm just saying it's easier for women to obtain sex.
but that's okay. So because it's easier, then that means that we get to be judged and ridiculed because something is easier.
That's how society works. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying that's just what it is.
I don't know. Y'all have to let us know how you feel about that
Yeah.
because I'm like, I don't know.
That's how society works.
So what he's saying is society says that the reason a woman is a hoe is because it's easier for me to go and get sex than it is for him.
You have to work for it.
Okay. All right. Let us know how you feel about that in the comments.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't even know where to go from here, y'all. And he's serious, just giving me the stare down. Like,
I'm just saying that is the general consensus.
okay.
You want to have a double standard here? How about this? When I turn 18, I am forced to register for the Selective Service in a draft. Women are not.
Well, that's the law.
I know. Why aren't women forced to register for the Selective Service in the draft like men are?
But I think that when it comes back to it, like when it's historic, right? So women are known to be the home makers, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, you're 18, you have kids or whatever, you're pregnant or whatever, you can't really go away.
Times has changed now, remember?
Yeah.
I'm
not saying that it can't change. I don't necessarily think that's a double standard. I think that is a law that has been written that way for so long. And
how is that not a double standard?
Well, what I'm saying is it's the law.
I know it's the law, and it's a law that is a double standard.
But it's a double standard how?
Because you don't have to do it, and I do.
Well, it's a law. That's different.
Just because it's a law don't mean it's not a double standard. I'm fully aware that it's a law. It's still a double standard.
What I'm saying is I think things like that can change, right? I think that things like that can change. Will it ever change that if a woman has slept around that she's a hoe and a man, no? You see what I mean? Like that's different. That's just a law that just needs to change.
But I think, do women want that law to change?
I mean, I think that's the thing, though. Like men don't.
I don't hear no women advocating to be able to register for Selective Service.
Well, I think men also do not get pregnant and bear kids and, XYZ. So like, I think all that, there's women in the military, but you have to take all that into consideration as well. Like if, you know what I mean? Like if I am pregnant or intending to get pregnant, like, do you want your wife registering? And like that prolongs so many different parts of your life. Like, so are you okay with that? If we're a married couple, you know what I mean?
I'm not even saying that I'm okay with it. All I'm just simply saying is it's a huge double standard that I am forced to. If I don't register for the Selective Service, I could lose my privilege to vote. I could lose any type of federal government assistance for anything. And I don't even have a choice. Like I was 17 a couple weeks before my 18th birthday, and I get this thing in the mail from the federal government saying that if you don't register for the Selective Service, you're going to be subject to this and this. And it was like, well, damn, welcome to 18. Register for the draft or else the government is basically going to bail on you and ostracize you. And women don't go through that.
Yeah,
only men.
But women go through other things like menopause.
But we're talking about the draft right now, though.
But we go through menopause.
Stop changing everything.
I'm not. You're saying, I was just saying to your point of you're like, but women don't go through that. And I'm just saying, I think that, yes, I agree with you. I think that women and men go through different things, though, for sure, that like you wouldn't go through. Like I'm in perimenopause and it's like the worst hell that I've ever been through in my life. But you don't have those issues. You know what I mean? That's a double standard. No, I'm kidding. It's not a double standard. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, I think that naturally, But I think also even just kind of going back to talking about, like, the workforce and stuff like that, like how hard it is for a woman to make their way up the corporate ladder, because, again, we didn't have the same rights as men and we were known to be at home and society told us that we had to be at home cooking and cleaning and slaving to our men and
men definitely had a head start.
Yeah,
that women were definitely handicapped, men definitely had a head start, and it is definitely harder. I feel like when you're a woman, you have to work twice as hard as the men to, and it's sad that it has to be the
prove
way, but you have to
yourself.
prove yourself
To prove yourself. I feel like
because
I've had a uphill battle
yeah,
my entire life of me trying to prove myself. And
yeah,
sometimes that has been because of the color of my skin, although I don't ever allow that to be a reason on why I would allow myself to fail. Like I'm just someone who would naturally push. But then also, it's hard to be a woman in a male dominated field when you think about, female police officers, how hard it is to get promotions and you know what I mean? Just because it's a male dominated field, where I don't necessarily, I wonder, maybe it's different in women dominated fields. Like, do men feel like it's harder for them to excel? I wonder if that's, the case, but I don't know.
I don't know either because I've never worked in a female dominated job related field, so I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Hey, if you're a guy out there and you work in a predominant female field, let us know.
Yeah.
Leave a comment.
So when it comes to dating, who should pay, who shouldn't pay?
I think that's very simple. I think whoever asked the person out on the date should pay.
I don't know. I think that's a hard one for me.
If you're a woman and you ask a man out on a date,
Women don't do that though, as much as men do that.
well, nowadays it's becoming a lot more common
Well, I think
that women are initiating interactions with men.
I think online dating and stuff like that has changed even this space where before it's like before online dating was a thing. I feel like now, you know what I mean? Like you meet someone online. I mean, let's keep it real. That's how most people, if you're in your late 30s to 40s, that's how you're meeting your people that you're dating, your husbands, your wives, or whatever. We have so many friends that have met
Online,
right? So it's like you meet online, you talk or whatever, and then you go out on a date. So then is it expected that even though we were matched, that now you are to pay for me? Because I know for me, I'm like, I don't know, this is so weird, but like I naturally would want to pay to show you that I could pay for my way. That I don't need no
I
man.
respect that. Me personally, I wouldn't let you pay, but it's nice and a green flag if you offered. Like I wouldn't. But as a woman, if you ask a man out on a date, you should be 100% paying. 100%. You asked him out.
I disagree with that.
Why? So you asked me out on a date and I still got to pay? You asked me out.
But I think it just goes to the same thing that
That's a huge double standard.
But I think it's just kind of what I just said. Like at the end of the day, if we agreed we're going to go out on this date, whether you ask me out or not, I'm still naturally going to say, oh, here's my card. I mean, now there's some women who are going to be like, no, who are going to sit and expect for a man to pay. I'm saying for me, though, like I would, and I think for a large, depending on your age and stuff like that, and really what you're looking for, like if you're dating just a date, you're looking for sugar daddy, you're looking for someone to spend money on you, because there are those people that are like that, right? But like I would naturally, try and at least pay my way or have the expectation that I'm going to pay my way. Now, if you said to me, oh, I got it, I'm going to be like, okay, well, thank you. But I still feel like I paid. Now, if we were talking or whatever, and then I'm like, oh, we should go out. Let's go, to dinner and go to a show. I would feel some type of way if you have the expectation that I'm going to pay for all of that. To me, that's insane. Like that you wouldn't even offer. And you're saying, "Oh my goodness!" Like
it's not that I wouldn't offer.
But you just said that you should if you're going to ask a guy out, you should 100% pay for everything.
You should. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't offer.
Disagree.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't offer because I would, but I'm just saying women have this expectation. Oh, he asked me out. I think a lot of women
some women.
They don't.
Some
I think
women.
a lot of women have this expectation that they are not going to pay on a first date. That is a society thing where women aren't expected to pay on the first date. Just like you said, oh, women don't really approach men. These are just things that how society works. Nobody expects the woman to pay on the first date. And if a dude did expect that, or you guys go Dutch, oh, he a bum, he this, he
I
that.
think that's old school way of thinking, though. I think right now, the way, and I don't know, y'all weigh in on this because I think that's the old school way of thinking. Again, and I think that it also has to do with maturity, age, and all of those things, right? Like a woman who is out there dating in her 40s is very different than a woman who's out there dating in her 20s. And so I think it's hard to say most women are this way when I don't think that's a factual statement. And I think you being a man saying most women are this way, how can you speak on most women when you're a man?
Because I've went on dates with women, and I've talked to men who's gone on dates with women. So I don't have to be a woman to have actual real world experience with that, though.
I mean, but you've been, okay, when's the last time you've been out on a date? We've been married now for almost 15 years. So
but I'm talking about I'm not talking about obviously with us because we're married.
I know, but what I'm saying is, see, this is me and him. This is why conversations like this. What I'm saying is, today is different, right?
But you're saying that. So how do you know that? Because when's the last time you've been on a date to say today is different?
Well, I have a lot of friends that do online dating. That this is a constant conversation that we actually have. I just had the same conversation with my girlfriends who are out online dating. I also know a 40-year-old, because I'm 43, so I know the mindset of a 40-year-old woman. I have friends that are 40 and single, right? And are literally trying to find their one, right? So these are conversations, that's all I'm saying. What I think is, yes, I think historically, it's always been, there is this double standard that men are to pay on the first date. I agree with that. I think that has changed, but I think overall it's a bigger, it just depends. There's a lot more factors that go into that. And age and maturity and all of those things are big. If I'm a successful businesswoman, then I am not going to have the expectation. If I was not with you and I went out on a date tomorrow, I am not going to have the expectation that anyone's going to pay. Now, if he paid, I'm going to be like, okay, he's, and he's a gentleman, and all of these things. But if he didn't, I wouldn't look at that as, oh, let me write him off that he didn't pay. But will some women? 100%.
Now, did you have the same mind frame in your 20s?
No, of course not. But I think I was also at a different stage of life. Do you remember a couple months ago we were out to eat? We were at Americana. Do you remember that? And there was that couple. It was very obvious that they were on a first date or a second date or whatever. And she was clearly there for the meal and the money. You know what I mean? She couldn't have made it less obvious. Like I think at one point too, she had said, yeah, you're not my type. I'm like, oh my God, like how dare you say that out loud? You know what I mean? And so those people are literally there just taking me out, show me a good time, spend your money on me.
Want to eat for free.
Yeah. They had ordered oysters and he was whining and dining. But I felt so bad for him because he was
getting used.
It was like so insane, but yeah. I think all in all, there's always going to be these things, right? There's always going to be double standards in life. There's always, I'd love to have, we'll have to do another episode and you guys will have to send us some questions or just some feedback so we can really, dive deeper into this gender role talk because I love it. You know what I mean? Without it getting political, because of course there is the whole should men be allowed to play in women's sports? And, so there's politics tied into that, but I will say I am not a fan of men playing in women's sports and, and so all of this, so there's just bigger conversations, definitely that we can have surrounding this, but this was fun. At one point.
You wrapping us up?
I'm wrapping us up. But we'll definitely have to do a part 2 to this.
Well, thank you for watching. If you have any double standards that we didn't talk about or anything that you would like for us to talk about in part 2, then please leave a comment and let us know because we'd love to keep the conversation going and hear your thoughts because obviously you can go very deep into this topic and it's almost endless the things we could talk about. Please like, share, subscribe, rate, and we will see you next time.